Welcome back to the channel. I have a slightly different view set up here because I wanted to zoom in on two particular modules for a brief video today that I think are way more powerful than you might give them credit for at first glance. These are the IntelliGel Duatt and 2 VCA. There are some really cool things beyond what we might think of as standard utilities that we can patch with these two modules. So I just wanted to run through a couple of different recipes that I think about for all of the cool ways that you can use these two modules together. As a starting point, I am going to patch a voltage-controlled crossfader. If you have two VCAs and something to invert your control signal, then you can turn those VCAs into a crossfader. What I'm going to do here is put in a stackable cable to the first VCA that we're controlling, and I'm just going to invert that signal here using the Duatt. That inverted signal is going to come out of the Duatt and into control voltage B. This is a basic crossfader here. The idea is whenever the CVA is high, CVB will be low or inverted. And whenever CVA is low, CVB will be high. So you either get voice A or voice B. Listening to the mix out from the two VCAs, I'm just going to plug different oscillators into each side. And now I'm going to use an LFO. You can just see it here, the sport modulator. We're going to use this LFO to go back and forth between the two signals that we have running into the crossfader. Whenever the sport modulator here is positive, we're hearing the top output, and whenever it's negative, we're hearing the bottom output, because that's inverted from the top here. That's our crossfader. Now, with this setup, there's also the opportunity to make a manual crossfader. We have this additional channel on the Duatt here, which can generate an offset with nothing plugged into the input. So I'm going to take the crossfade channel. It's no longer attached to the LFO. I'm going to run that into channel B here. And now we have a manual crossfader using all of the channels on the Duatt and the 2 VCA. One of the main reasons that I introduced this crossfader, though, is because it itself is a building block that now lets us access our second recipe, which is ring modulation. Coming back to the skeleton of the crossfader recipe here, you can use a crossfader to perform ring modulation or 4-quadrant multiplication of two signals. You crossfade between a positive and an inverted copy of one signal using the other signal as the control voltage for the crossfader. So I'm going to use a second stackable cable here to, just as we did with this channel, create an inverted copy of A with the Duatt. So now the top channel of the VCA is giving us the positive input signal and the positive control signal. And the bottom channel of the VCA is giving us the inverted input and the inverted control signal. This produces ring modulation. I'm going to put a sine wave onto the input here. And I'm going to use this channel of the sport modulator here for the control signal. And there's our ring modulation sound. In this case, we're assembling the ring modulated signal out of the positive and the negative halves of the waveform and mixing those together using the bottom output of the 2 VCA. One of the neat things about using a crossfader for ring modulation is that we can get this weird other version of ring modulation. I don't know if there's a name for this, but I call it asymmetric or warm ring modulation by not inverting the input that we run into the crossfader. So there's our standard ring modulation. Now I'm going to switch over to this asymmetric ring modulation. You can hear it sort of emphasizes the octave up, and it has a slightly warmer sound to it. Ring modulation is often described as a cold sound, and I think that this asymmetric version of it is contrastingly a little bit warmer in its quality. With a VCA and an offset generator, you can get wave rectification. The simplest version of this is a half wave rectification. And what this means is that we're only getting the positive half of our waveform. One of the neat things about a VCA is that we can get both positive and negative inputs out of the input, but the CV control generally only accepts positive inputs. It ignores the negative half of the input. It stays closed during that entire time. So we can leverage this fact about VCAs to make a wave rectifier by treating our VCA a little bit differently than we normally do. To demonstrate this, I'm going to start by just generating a positive offset and running that to the CV input. I'm going to take an audio rate signal from the sport modulator, run that to the input of the VCA. And now with a positive offset to the CV control of our VCA, we're just going to hear the oscillator, the signal coming through just as normal. But now, if I switch these inputs so that the input to the VCA is our offset, and we're controlling it with the audio signal, the VCA will ignore the audio signal for the negative half, and it will use this 5 volts to draw the audio signal for the upper half of it. This will give us only the upper half of the wave, which gives us a different quality to our signal. And that's our half wave rectification. Now, the really exciting thing with the Duatt and the 2 VCA is that we can use our remaining channels to create full wave rectification. Similar to how the crossfader built a composite signal out of a positive and negative half of the waveform, we can use half wave rectification for one half of our waveform, and then invert that signal, rectify it again to get the other half of our fully rectified waveform, and mix those two together. For this recipe, I want a positive offset on both of the inputs, and I want an inverted copy of the audio signal for the bottom half. So it's a little bit of a tangle here, but this is the recipe for our full wave rectifier. We have a positive offset going to the inputs of both channels of the VCA. And we have our audio signal going into CVA, an inverted copy running into CVB. We're mixing one half of our wave rectifier with the inverted wave rectifier to get a fully rectified signal. And for comparison, let's listen to the initial audio again. This is our input to our wave rectifier. Just to try and articulate visually what I'm showing here with the wave rectifier, here I have the inverted channel disabled. It's set to 0 volts. So this is our half wave rectification, as you can see here. And then as I invert this, there's that second half of the waveform coming in as our full wave rectifier. In both the ring modulation and wave rectification demonstrations, the process involves splitting the waveform into two parts, inverting or processing one of those parts, and then combining them back together. This opens the door to a variety of synthesis techniques that involve stitching together different signals to create a sort of Frankenstein's waveform.